My background story, I started in the school I'm teaching at now as a 17-year-old volunteer. From that, the head teacher actually said, you've got something with these children. You're able to manage these children with high extreme behaviours, which was a little bit unusual as a 17-year-old. Looking back, it was because I actually shared the same brain type. I actually had ADHD myself. So at the time, the head teacher gave me a teaching assistant contract until the end of that academic year. He said, go away, get your job, go away, get your degree, come back as a teacher, and I'll give you a job. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm now assistant head of an SEMH school in North Tyneside. I wanted to show you how the immersive reader works on this view. If you click on the text, so say you're presenting to your children and you've got your ViewSonic, you've got your presentation up. If you actually click on the text, you can do like a text to reader, or you can do like an immersive reader as well. So that'll help for the auditory learning as well. I can sign in as well if you need mine. So while we're waiting for that, I created a TikTok and Instagram channel called Mr. G Teacher. I kind of got a little bit famous on TikTok for doing creative things in the classroom. It started off with doing a little bit of shuffle dancing, particularly for the hyperactive type of ADHD. So I found a link between the shuffle dancing and the hyperactive ADHD brain in terms of memorizing the steps. But it was amazing in terms of self-regulation and regulating the nervous system, getting those children back to a ready to learn stage. So yeah, this is it in a sense. So you can see how you can kind of break down the text. So if you have a large piece of text here, this is perfect for a neurodivergent learner, just to break it down and just remove those barriers. So I'll go through that. So you get the idea.
Emotional and mental health.
So you get the idea. So that's a little technique you can use with your viewboard. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about the difference between neurodivergence and neurodiversity. So everybody is neurodiverse. Everybody in this workshop here has a different brain. We all have different brains. Neurodivergent is a very specialist way that the brain receives and processes information. So that would be conditions such as ADHD, autism, dyslexia. All those conditions are neurodivergent. So I've just wanted to clarify some of the terminology there before we moved on. I myself have been diagnosed with ADHD, the combined type. So I've got everything. You'll notice I'm always on the move now. I'm the same in the classroom. I'm constantly stealing the children's pens and pencils. Like, Mr. G, I haven't got my pen. And that's a part of it. But they kind of accept my condition as well. And so it makes it like a really nice, inclusive learning environment as well. There we go. So yeah, just as I've referred to it just before. So who is neurodivergent? We've got ADHD has autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and it's obviously the list goes on and on. And if you're being involved in education, you'll know that in your classroom, this is rising as well. So how do we best support the needs of those children? Okay, so I like to look at this in terms of the ADHD learner. So this is a little kind of triangle I've created, just from my experience that I find that works really well. So the key, it goes through positive relationships. That's the fundamental. If you've got that positive relationship, that connection from student to teacher, you can then start to add in some positive interaction, which will lead to positive engagement in your classroom. If you try and go straight into engagement, without having a relationship there, it's going to be tougher to manage, and you might have a child refusing, so you might struggle with that. So yeah, positive relationship absolutely imperative when working with ADHD learners. And it's a little bit more challenging to get that positive relationship as well. So neurodivergent children have been through some traumatic experiences. They have issues with trust. So it might take a little bit of time to develop that relationship. You might be trying all these strategies and they're not working. Just don't give up. That positive relationship will come within time. So just make sure you don't give up. For me, I use the fresh start approach all the time. You'll know that probably drawing on your own educational experiences. You know, I've had incidents where a class teacher has refused to let a student back in the classroom. That's something we should never do. We should always have a fresh start approach. We can't hold anything personal, and obviously we need to be memorable of that. The key thing is to adapt and relate. Adapt the curriculum any way you can and relate to the children. Try and incorporate their personal interests into your lessons as well. So and that really helps with a positive relationship. So if you can remember key details about your students, for me, teaching Newcastle, we'll talk about the match quite a bit. We'll talk about local teams that they're in. Or how did you get on in the weekend? So just having that kind of personal level will help with a positive relationship, which will feed into the positive interaction, which I'm going to talk about next. So positive interaction, it's not only the way you interact, but it's also your ability to repair the relationship if that becomes damaged. So if there's been an incident involved, you need to think, how am I going to repair that? How am I going to make my classroom inclusive and approachable to be able to manage that? Because like that can be really tricky as well, especially if it's like a physical incident. That the student can take a lot of time to get over that. And we have to do repair and reflect exercises. It could be through a game format. It could be just like a self-reflection. But that's really important. Really important to look at in terms of protecting that relationship. Because it's great having a positive relationship, but there will be times where it's going to be challenged, and we'll have to make sure that we're using a fresh start approach to manage that. So all behaviour is a form of communication. So I like to use the analogy of kind of surface behaviour. So you'll be met with a lot of surface level behaviour. You'll see the things above the surface, but there's loads of things underneath as well. So we have a key member of staff called a link worker who deals with the communication from home into schools. So we'll draw on that information, and it might inform our practice. So for example, I might say, "Oh, Jamie, I've had a student who's had a really, really tough time. This has happened. So I know as a teacher, I'm gonna tailor things a little bit differently around the needs of that student to support them the best way I can." So if you've got your positive relationships are strong, and you're feeding in all this positive interaction, that will lead to increased engagement in your classroom. It's just a fact it will. What I've spoke about as well is us teachers. There's a massive emphasis on the academic side. There's so much pressure on scores and attainment and data, all to do with the academic side. But we also need to be. It's so important to also look at the holistic side. Look at the development of the child. Look at those little steps in terms of attendance. If you've got a non-attender at 50%, then they're coming in at 60, 70. That type of data needs to be celebrated as well. Dopamine's an amazing thing. So there's science studies between a defective dopamine gene. I always like to put R2D2 in there just to remind me. So it's the D2R2 gene that is defective, which basically means there's less dopamine going into the brain. So you might have a student who'll do something called dopamine seeking. So this might be a student who's trying to wind another student up, and they're getting a little bit of a buzz, I like to say. They're getting a kick out of it. What that is a dopamine hit. So that's their brain. It normally happens when a child is bored. So when a brain is bored, especially an ADHD brain, when a brain is bored, the brain will actively seek the dopamine. And because there's not enough dopamine being produced, they may look to wind other students up, or might look for something which is kind of like a negative dopamine intake. A positive dopamine intake, there's loads of strategies you can use to introduce dopamine into your brain naturally. One of them is through dance. So dance releases chemicals into the brain, it releases dopamine, and it releases serotonin as well. So dopamine is the feel-good hormone. So yeah, there's lots of different ways. There's obviously music, nature therapy. There's loads of things you can do to naturally top up those dopamine levels. Or if a child has ADHD medication, they'll also be topping up that dopamine that way as well. Technology can also work as a catalyst to increase dopamine levels. So all these online quizzes, all these quick interactive tasks, and all these innovative tools that we have can also provide the brain with enjoyment, that feel-good hormone, topping those dopamine levels to a typical amount. How can you incorporate technology for ADHD? As pretty much every aspect of teaching. So you could start with your starter activities, to introduce a new teaching concept. You've seen some quizzes before there. That's really good for just prior knowledge, and then you can build on that. So loads of online quizzes. You can make them teacher made. I'll do one where it's a quiz all about me. So if I got a new class, I'll do one and do that in like a fun kind of gamified style. That's really good for it's really good for our ADHDers as well. Co-teaching, obviously you can use technology in any way, just explain the main learning objective for positive interaction and engagement, like we talked about earlier. Plenaries, obviously at the end when you want to see what's being learned, technology is obviously massively important for that. Transitional activities, so this is really important. I used to have a sports assignment earlier. I used to have a visual timetable around my board with the events of the day, which is obviously routines and expectations, really important for ADHDers. But now we can do that digitally. So there's various platforms where you can have a visual timetable that's digital, and you can check it off and it's interactive as you go through the day. So because what you shouldn't have, which I have had in the past, if you have your focal point, your whiteboard, and you've got loads of information around it, that can be a bit distracting for an ADHD brain. So it should be as minimalistic as possible. So this setup's actually really cool. And then also for the working memory, so getting it from the working memory into consolidation. If teaching a child with ADHD will have to do a lot of work on repetition, trying to get it from the working brain into the short-term, into the long-term memory as well. Okay, so these are some key strategies for supporting an ADHD child. So I've mentioned the power of movement in the classroom. So that doesn't have to be through dance. That can be, I remember back in primary school, the teacher used to send me on take the register at the office. That's a little movement break. We didn't really know about it at the time. That was a movement break. So yeah, there's lots of different movement breaks other than the shuffle dancing that you might see me do. You can do gardening. You can do obviously forest schools, outdoor learning. That's so much. Even PE. So providing a safe and secure space. I know that can be difficult in some settings, but it should be identified when the child is hitting that kind of peak levels of frustration. They should be able to speak to a key adult and know where can I go to kind of decompress my feelings and take it from there. Visual timetables, they're super important, especially for an ADHD brain in terms of organisation. Checklists work for me really well. Little box checklists as I go through in terms of my diary and stuff. Mindfulness activities, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Positive reinforcement, that obviously positives are massively important for an ADHD. Some ADHD children don't like positives, or they don't like direct positives. So if you have a child who doesn't kind of like that direct praise, what you can do is something called triangulated praise. So that's where you draw on another member of staff just to kind of check in with that student there. Say, oh, Mr. Turnbull said you've done really well with this. I'm really proud of that. So it might not be direct from you, but so that's what triangulated praise. It goes through another person, like another member of staff. Incentivize learning. So if you're really struggling to motivate an ADHD child, how can you get them to hit the learning objective? It might be like I do like a little kickabout. So I'll be like, oh, if you get this done, we'll go for a kickabout after. So it's just trying to have that. If you know yourself, if you've got something to look forward to, it's gonna increase your engagement. So if you have a holiday coming up, you can kind of battle through the tough times. That's similar to our practice. What can we incorporate to kind of incentivize those children? Immediate feedback. So I do a lot of things like spot marking, like there on the spot, just to kind of check in with the ADHD brain. That's really powerful. Time management. So things like obviously countdowns, timers, visuals, just for transition between activities. If you don't have that, it can kind of disrupt the ADHD brain. So having that kind of countdown just prepares an ADHD for what's coming next. 2-choice ultimatums, they can be really powerful. So it's where you kind of, if you have too much choice, you'd be overwhelmed. So you literally have 2 choices. So it kind of just decreases the options. And breathing techniques. So I could go on, there's hundreds more. These are just some key ones. Breathing, so powerful, but I'm going to go through that in a little bit later as well. So movement I'll put it as a type of medicine for some ADHD children, especially those diagnosed with the hyperactivity type. So you'll often see, if you follow me on my socials, I do a certain type of dance called shuffle dancing. There's a reason behind that. It's to do with the repetition of the steps. They're easier to memorize. And there's a link between the working memory and actually transferring that into the moves as well. Especially, I've noticed the hyperactive type are really good with that. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it's to do with the bouncing element of the shuffle dancing. It's quite high paced, so it kind of caters towards the hyperactivity traits a bit more. But yeah, so yeah. In terms of the neuroscience, I've kind of touched on it a little bit more, but it's fantastic. It's fantastic for the brains. So in terms of, it's releasing chemicals, it's releasing dopamine, it's releasing serotonin into their brains, and it also improves their focus and concentration. So like a quick little dance like this is going to take me 15. This took 15 seconds. So this was a student who I've got a positive relationship with. I don't teach. I used to teach him in year 5, 6. Then when I transferred to assistant head, he went to a different class. I'm his key adult, so if he's struggling in school, he'll come see me. So he had an incident. Where he absconded. He went off site temporarily and came back. So he had quite a high level incident. Absconding is quite a serious one. He came to seek me out, so I was super proud about that. And then as soon as he walked, this is like my little office area. As soon as he walked through my door, the member of staff said, "Oh, can this student come speak to you?" I immediately could tell by his body language that obviously something happened. And then I just said, do you fancy having a little dance? And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And you can't see his face, but beneath that, he was absolutely beaming. And that took me 15 seconds to I think I should be able to play it actually. So let's have a look. So it's really important. So briefing techniques. So this is one. I'm not going to be able to do this one with my at the same time as holding the mic. But this is just a one where you literally, if you just trace around your hand. So you just, with the blue arrows, you would inhale, with the orange arrows, you would exhale. But one of the key ones that I use all the time, that's a really quick one, is if you take 2 sharp inhales through your nose and then followed by a deep exhale, that regulates the nervous system within seconds. I've used this before when I've been like really nervous. So when I was on like national TV on BBC, like live TV, I used it then, and it does actually work. So it's literally just and that can be really powerful. That can regulate the nervous system in seconds. So that's a cool one you can use. This is a mindfulness activity that I've found is really cool for ADHD. So if you have this on your board, or you can have this as a printed resource. So the idea behind this is you use a pen, and it's like splatter art. So it really helps with creativity as well. So you're kind of you can go in different ways, but you're kind of like going around and trying to like highlight certain points. That's probably a little bit too thick, so I'll change the thickness. But this is the idea. You have a few children doing this at a time. So this is kind of open to interpretation. So I kind of like to do it color coordinated, and you can make some absolutely amazing artwork for that. That's really good for transition, especially after busy times, after break times where you can be a little bit more boisterous and stuff, and you need the children to come down. This is a great one. So you use it for in the morning, you use it for transitions. Also use it as like a de-escalation technique. If you can see a child rising, you can use this technique as well. This is another one that I like to use. I'm going to find the spotlight. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer for this actually. See if anyone can find the animal. So I should have wait for this spotlight tour. Oh, there we go. So would anyone like to come up and see if they can try and find the animal using the My View board? So the idea is you got to drag it around the pit round and then find the animal on here. Anyone like to be a volunteer? Go on, Simon. So Simon's looking for that. My ADHD children absolutely love this activity. So I have lots of different ones. You can have them for camouflage. You can just get these from the internet and just import them in. And it's just quite a cool way of just trying to encapsulate attention straight away. So you could just use this before you do your main teaching as well. It's getting serious now. Glasses. So yeah, this is just quite a nice little technique that you can use straight away within your classroom. So you could do this, you know. Yeah, it is harder with that. So I'm going to try a different tool as well, just so we get used to it. I think there's, if I go back into this magic box, into this tool section, there's this magnifying glass. So we've also got this option as well, so we can magnify it. So you can look for certain areas. I'm going to give you a clue. So the animal you're looking for is actually a rabbit. You found it? Would you like to come? Would you like to come up? I don't know if I've got any chocolate. I've got any chocolate left. Have we got any ViewSonic chocolate or prizes? Yeah, awesome. Well done. So if I drag my magnifying glass there, if you can see that, there's a rabbit there. And my ADHD children absolutely love this activity. And that's the end, guys. So I'm going to stay around for a few minutes. So if anyone would like to ask me any questions, anything linked to ADHD or neurodivergent children, I'm open. So I'm going to be here for 10, 15 minutes more. So yeah, come see me and thank you.